Aine usla leverdol, bigi in Vashasif, agus folchigi riv, uchtun naherin, Mihal di o Yigin, agus avankela saivin I Yigin. Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding to welcome President of Ireland, Michael D. Higgins, and his wife, Sabina Higgins.
Uachtarán Sabina to Fáilte Ruv Anseo Aniu. You're very, very welcome. We gather today as a community with tender hearts in a world that is hurting. The purveyors of death and destruction rip through the skies, bombing the innocent while share prices rocket. The enabling of Israel's genocide on the Palestinian people holds a mirror to the soul of the world. The grip of greed lays siege to our shared commons, while the merchants of division sow disinformation and distraction to turn us from each other. Meanwhile, Mother Nature cries ever louder with wildfires, floods, and storms in a final warning. The whisper of invitation lingers. Are we rising in our roles as trustees and caretakers of this earthly paradise? It is against this backdrop that we look to the light. We look to each other to tend to the flickering flame in the darkness of the night, and in these fragile moments we are reminded of who we are by each other. And by educators like all of you here, facilitators, and by the leaders who show us courage to carry forward the light of humanity. Those who fought to hold the ancestral memory of what it means to be truly human, to be part of the whole magnificent fabric of life, part of nature, true nature, of a tua of truth, a pubble of global possibility. President Higgins, as an educator, an activist, a politician, and as president, you have carried this torch over many decades in a life of service that has left a legacy whose pulse will be felt for generations. Alongside your shining sidekick, the original power couple, as we say these days. Together you've lit a million fires, lifted weary hearts, challenged the convention and comfort of the status quo while campaigning tirelessly for the marginalized, the oppressed, the forgotten in this land and beyond. Always reminding us to be the arrow, not the target. Showing too that the best of our Irishness can prosper in the consciousness of global citizenship, the knowledge that we have a shared identity of a bigger humanity. And you've done so with warmth, heart, decency, and with generosity, unafraid, as I've just witnessed, to give a hug, to give a smile, to show that joy is fundamental to the work of liberation. And with that sometimes cheeky twinkle in your eye, you remind us not to be afraid to stir, to shake, to question the compliance and silence that allows injustice to flourish. You have been a true global voice for hope, a global voice for humanity. President Higgins, Sabina, Le Banachty O'Cree, Dave, thank you. Thank you for your service, for your leadership, and that the love you have given to this land. Today, we celebrate you. Thank you. Please welcome another leader of the light to guide us in a musical transformation, the wonderful Colm Mac Con Iomaire.
Back in 2019, I had a life-changing I spent a life-changing 10 days in traveling around Palestine and Israel, and I was there with an international delegation from Narrative 4, and I was there with the writer Colm Mac Con, and he had just recently finished a book about two friends, bereaved parents, two fathers, Rami Elhanan and Bassam Aramin, and they together founded an organization called the Parent Circle, which is made up of bereaved parents who, as they put it, used their grief as a weapon to end the occupation. So I'd like to play this for them and for everybody in Gaza at the moment. So it's called The Minbar of Saladin, which is a chapter in Colm's book.
Thank you so much, Colm. That was monumental. Hi, everyone. My name is Maximiliana. I'm a part of communications team within the IDEA organization. It's good to see you all here, including the President of Ireland, Michael D. And also thank you so much for the TDs who are here, Catherine Connolly and Jen Cummins and Owen Kenny. I'm especially grateful for President Higgins today for his leadership as a truly outstanding global citizenship education champion, and to celebrate him here today. Asante sana. Thank you very much. I'm privileged to stand here before you today to introduce some of our special and wonderful guests for this ceremony. Our first special guest is Caoimhe De Barra, who is the CEO of Trócaire. Caoimhe is a hugely important voice, and Trócaire are our treasured member, partner, and founder of IDEA. Welcome, Caoimhe.
a uachtarán a haimhín. Is mór na nóra domsa nis nniu bheith an seo libh chun clúra dhéanamh de chinneacht ó hebh ceartas sosiálta damda a chlúra. Le níos mó ná 3 scór bliain anuas léirigh tú cinneacht eisceachtúil, unric agus tiomanta, agus tá muid anmhuaich asad the réir. President, throughout your entire career, you've embodied justice and courage. Archbishop Desmond Tutu famously said, if you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Whenever there was a choice to be made between speaking the truth and staying silent, Uachtaran, you always chose the truth. You've been tireless in your advocacy for global social justice. You've stood up in the face of the most powerful people on this earth to call out violations of human rights, including, and for this we are most grateful, in your many recent statements on the situation in Gaza. You've called out the hypocrisy of those who claim to stand for international humanitarian law, for democracy, rights, and freedom, but whose actions demonstrate the opposite. And we know that this principled stance dates back to your earliest years in national politics. We know this not least from your wonderful recent book, Power to the People. I'm reminded by recent times of your stance in relation to Ronald Reagan, President of the US, Ronald Reagan's visit to Ireland back in 1984, and the courageous and principled stance that you took then, because of the echoes it has now down through the years. You stood up against the visit of President Ronald Reagan in response to the US government's human rights violations in Central America, and you took this stance in defiance of a political and economic and social system that at that time was consumed with the argument that we still hear today with respect to the Occupied Territories Bill, the risk to US investment in Ireland. Indeed, you've given this country an example of what it's like to put the rights of brutally oppressed people before our own self-interest and comfort, and to call on us to dial into our values to take the action that we know is right to take. This goes to the heart of what global citizenship education is about, to help people understand the root causes of poverty and injustice, to build empathy, to challenge unjust systems, and to take meaningful action towards a kinder, fairer, and more sustainable world. Uachtaran, you've lived a life in pursuit of justice and in defiance of political expediency. Mullamid gohordhu, agus gamwid ar muichas omlon lat.
Thank you very much, Quiva. So now we have something different. I want to introduce our renowned Galway poet, Sarah Clancy, who will share a special poetry tribute for the president. The stage is now yours, Sarah.
Hello, everyone. President Sabina, what an extraordinary honour that this is. Myself and Rory McKiernan shared a memory there during this week of the first time that Michael D. Higgins ran for president. There was a youth debate which we were involved in organising, and we just remembered this extraordinary energy. Young people are the hardest to impress, and when Michael D. Higgins finished speaking, the young people were stamping their feet and cheering, and that is not a joke. They weren't responding similarly to some of the other candidates. That's all I'll say about that. I think that Galway poets are possibly more famous for their stinging critiques than for their tributes. So I read this to my partner this morning, and I said, it's an unusual tone for me. I said, it's very gentle, and she said to me, it's not that gentle, Sarah. So here, I'll leave it to you. It is very gentle, I think. It's a poem called Lighthouses, and I just want to say that Caoimhe Butterly, who's here, has been speaking about how in times of monsters we have to be lighthouses for each other, and this is a poem about that, and with no further ado, I'll read it for you. Lighthouses. In the worst of times, look for the helpers, the bright spots, the lighthouses. The street seller throwing his oranges onto the tarpaulins of aid trucks stuck at the border with Rafah. Remember, in this Ireland, an apparent there is no alternative epicentre, where politicians and businessmen and technocrats offer us their limited visions of people living on enough crumbs from the market, on enough mirrors and trinkets to secure our appeasement. And while the commons, that which we share and depend on, trickles endlessly upwards, where the impotent cult of the centrist dads bang the drums for wars they won't fight in, where the myth of the entrepreneur has become one of the sacraments, where even a genocide apparently must be viewed pragmatically in case it affects our balance of trade payments. In these grimmest of times, all we can do is seek out the helpers, the lighthouses, the Muslim sisters of Era offering food without judgment, the women in Shannon trespassing, pitting their bodies against militarism. And later this week, the Free Gaza flotilla will sail again, brave people breaking the siege. And Mike Ryan and Kneecap and Bleeny Ní Grálaí, all in their different ways, speaking our history as solidarity at the exact time that it's needed. And remember that twice over, 1 million of us voted for a president who all his life stood against empire, who loves dogs and soccer and takes time to write poems about donkeys, whose treatises on Habermas and the public sphere might defeat us, but when provoked by injustice, his fury is white-hot and righteous, and he speaks for us, who still carries the message of the non-aligned movement, that aspiration that peace-loving nations can collaborate to mutual benefit for their people, for this planet and every single thing in it, who shows us that intellect and sentiment aren't opposites, that the best of all politics is local and global and hopeful, that no cause is too great or too small to fight for. In the grimmest of times, seek out the helpers, the lighthouses, and remember when you think no change is possible, that twice over, more than 1 million voters chose hope and radical empathy. Never doubt for a minute that things can be different if, as Michael D. says, we'd only give up our old cynicism. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was powerful and very inspirational. My main takeaway was local and global. So our next tribute speaker is Donnah Sibanda Vuma, who works with DORAS, a fantastic national migrant rights and refugees support organization based in Limerick. DORAS is one of the newest members of IDEA, and we know DORAS has a special relationship with President Higgins, who is their patron. Donnah is a co-founder of Mercy, the movement of Islam seekers in Ireland, and Every Child is Your Child Ireland, which provides school support for children living in direct provision. Welcome, Donnah.
A very good afternoon, everyone. It just dawned on me as I was sitting there that I should have practiced a bit of my Irish greeting as a new Irish citizen. But thank you. It's a profound honor to be here today to celebrate President Michael D. Higgins, whose leadership has meant so much to those of us who are migrants, but also working with and within migrant communities. I first encountered President Higgins in 2018 at the launch of Belonging to Limerick Integration Strategy. I remember sitting next to him on the panel in Thomond Park, listening as he spoke not just about migration, but about belonging, about the importance of creating a society where everyone feels seen, valued, and included. For me as a migrant, that moment mattered, and it still does today. Because too often we see integration talked about in technical terms. It's usually about policies, about services, and about numbers. We forget the human aspect. But what President Higgins understands, and what he reminded us that day, is that integration is deeply human. It's about recognition, dignity, and the right to be part of a shared future. Through his words and actions, he has consistently challenged exclusion and reminded this beautiful country of Ireland of its responsibilities and its potential to be part of welcome and justice. On behalf of so many of us, especially at a time when hope seems bleak, President Higgins has been a voice and a light of hope for many of us. He has constantly helped us find a voice and a home and that sense of belonging in Ireland. I want to say thank you, President Higgins, for your leadership and the tremendous difference that you've made to our lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Donnah. We now have some wonderful special guests who came from Belfast in Belfast. Please welcome the students from Bunscoil Mhic Reachtain who are involved in great global citizenship education work in partnership with our friends, funders, concern. Kid Miller Fulcher.
Díodh a uachtaráin a hilse agus a cardja. Is me se fin. Tá mé Bunscoil Mhic Reachtain I mé firste agus bhí mé an dhearan a bhain comórtas díospreachta Bunscoilna concern worldwide le garad. Dóla mé hían agus an dhearan an táhacht a bhainean le daoine óga a bheith glórach nuair nach míon an gheart le fáil ag daoine. Is mór linn an caithfirmíocht, an cór agus an dóthas. Today it's our great honour, on behalf of IDEA, to be present at the very first Global Voice for Humanity Award, which will be presented to someone who has inspired so many of us, our President, Micheál D. O'Higgins. This award was created to celebrate people whose lives reflect the values of global citizenship, values like dignity, equality, education and compassion, all words in the language of togetherness. President Higgins has spent his life speaking out for those who are not always heard, challenging injustice and reminding us of our shared responsibility to build a fairer, more peaceful world. As a teacher, a poet, a Gael, a leader, and now as President of Ireland, he has shown how powerful words can be when they come from the heart, and how important it is to think deeply, to act kindly, and to stand in solidarity with others. Our President is our role model, a uachtaráin a bhic na garad. Thank you for showing us what leadership with humanity looks like. You remind us, young and old, that authentic education must also be about people learning how to care, how to question, and how to make the world a better place for all. Tá much brodal asset as an rod shaw rowing a Larry doing. So it's with great pride that we see you presented today with an inaugural Global Voice for Humanity Award. Go raibh míle mai agad a uachtaráin.
Leanna sin, follow that. Mahu fin, Eira og. So, showing my piece of elegy Owen Palestine, I was musically thunderstruck like nowhere else to visit. And this is another piece of music that's landed from there. And I'd like to play it for all of, for all of you all. And I think it's really important, and you've been a esham of dispelling the illusion of powerlessness. And I think we should remember the actions that we can take locally to make a difference. So, come on. Gurmila Margaret.
Now, wowzers, I need to lie down after all that. So the big moment, the award presentation. I'd like to invite up two stalwarts of the IDEA community, representing our members, one of our great veterans, Bobby McCormick, co-founder and CEO of Development Perspectives and chair of IDEA, and Elaine Mahan, head of membership at IDEA. Very welcome.
Hi everyone, it's really wonderful to see you all here today and to thank Sabina and Michael D. Higgins, our president, for being here. It means so much to everyone, I think, in IDEA, and we'll be basking in the glory of this light and this lighthouse, I think, for a long time to come. So I'm told is far Gaeilge Brishtain a Berla Clista. So I'll do my best to say is more an honor done agus doing go léir, cuira a hurt chuig Uachtarán na Héireann or Uachtarán na Héireann, Mícheál D. O'Higgins, on Céad Dúis ó IDEA, Global Voice for Humanity, a Glacu Anish. It is with great pleasure that we invite our President, Michael D. O'Higgins, the President of Ireland, to join us here on stage and to receive the inaugural IDEA Global Voice for Humanity Award.
You can't. Do you want to be an addition to what is failing and isn't working? Or do you want to work in the thing of transformation? I believe that, for example, that when money is spent in relation to women and children and production of food, the mud and the soil is capable of producing an oven, and the sun is there to provide solar energy and whatever. But you will have people saying, but you should be importing this. Food security is about hunger, but also about sufficiency, nutrition, but more important about stunting and all of that. But if you provide it, as indeed people like Ian Good and others and Anne, his partner, are suggesting, basic universal development, basic universal services, food, health, education, you immediately help participation. And from that ground-up participation comes the very necessary changes in leadership. And that is what I mean by saying the campaign should be globalization from below. Globalization from above is a continuation of the poisoning of the world, the dividing of the world, the creation of conflict. It is a quiet racism, of course, when it addresses difference. I think in many ways education is vital in interpreting history. Can I say what I dealt with in many, many ways? The struggle we have had. I spoke recently to giving the famine memorial lecture. The struggle we had in facing up to the fact that the people were made the victim of an economic theory. And the people cannot be made the victim of an economic theory now either. The ideas, our papers are full of the great threat of the fallout between oligarchs. But I was delighted to be people, our great General Secretary O'Shea of the Nurses Union, and others saying, It will not come at the cost of the security of workers. It must not come at the cost of any changes. So therefore, I think it's very difficult. I'll finish it now just simply saying this. It is times change. Who knew that we'd have an American president that believes that God sent him to have the Olympics and to have the soccer? But now in addition to it all, he says, I have it all, he said. And there is something that must be. Why should any citizen anywhere in the world not work for human rights, but not, just every now and again cast a glance at the idea of the oligarchs in rule? This is what must be opposed. I think in relation to just cliches and others, there is something, my very final word, it is very possible, very important, not to give ground away by actions that are so easily abused by an authoritarian response. I think you have to be very sophisticated and go to the depth of the thing, as well as having the courage. As Sabina and I, others know so many of you who joined us in struggles in Galway City and elsewhere and abroad. I just think that, and I find it hard, I'm just now being totally honest with you. I was last in Gaza in 2006. I visited there with Andres Van Act, and we produced a plan. It was the year after Israel gave up Gaza. And Gaza is now being occupied again. And the West Bank is being savaged by people who are destroying homes. And in Jerusalem, the most sacred places of the different religious systems are being abused. I think it's all capable of being changed. But it's very what and I mean by saying about the response. The slightest mistake by those on the left has always been exaggerated, misrepresented, misreported. And then the government says, we have to respond to this. And the response is authoritarian. And then the response will become more authoritarian. And then the conditions for fascism. So the thing to do is to know where to make your move in relation to every aspect. That's why it's so important that the best economics at the moment is being written by trade unionists and others. The best views in relation to work are in fact coming from people who are trade unionists. So I think in relation to it all then, it's interesting that even Pope Leo XIV has gone back to the original document of Rerum Novarum, which spoke of the rights of workers. I want to thank you. It's wonderful to receive this award, for which I do so with humility, and as I said, having mentioned all those who worked with me. But also I do say, one's heart would have to lift. So many different organizations in so many different aspects, and the membership coming into them. There is no doubt whatsoever, it is possible to achieve the transformation that will bring into reality all of the things that you all have been working so hard for. Is cuimgach ragus banach dari snihirach di shin, agus come agus federum by me a card live. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
How to follow the words of President Higgins. As ever, the words are intellectually provoking, emotionally touching, and certainly a call to action for us to try to tackle the many injustices that we continue to face throughout the world. Thank you, President Higgins, for the stirring and powerful remarks. More importantly, though, Thank you for being such an incredible champion of the work that we collectively try to do. It has been an honour to have you as our president, and let me take this opportunity to wish you and Sabina the very best into the future. On the behalf of IDEA and all of its members, sincere thank you. Thank you to all of the contributors who paid tribute to President Higgins and everyone who attended, including Minister Richmond, TDs, Senators, Irish Aid, and of course all of the wonderful IDEA community. And we do have one final element that we'll come to in a second, but just a quick reminder that after lunch we'll be starting immediately at 2 p.m. with the workshops. So slightly changed, scrap the last comment, Anya will give further details. So please go to the workshop as Anya instructs. Yes, indeed. And lastly, just for everyone, please stay seated until the President's departure is announced. So now a very special ending to this wonderful ceremony. Please welcome back the students from Bunscoil Mhic Reachtain.
Aine us le lever dol, fogagi slán leis an uchtarán ó igín agus lena van céla saivin aigín. Ladies and gentlemen, please bid farewell to President Higgins and his wife, Sabina Higgins. Thank you.